samasta jana kalyani niratam karunamayam namami chinmayam devam satgurum brahma vidvaram satgurum brahma vidvaram. People are not born great. But few people in this world attain greatness that others admire, revere, and even worship. Our great rishis, and particularly our Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda, not only himself a great personality, but always kept on reminding us that greatness lies in each and every one of us. In fact, in this world, we are not afraid of our weaknesses. In fact, we are afraid to acknowledge our strength. The great masters, spiritual masters, have said that the one infinite is our own nature. And therefore, there is nothing in this world that is impossible for one who recognizes, acknowledges, and discovers what lies within each one of us. And when we express that blessedness, greatness manifests. We all want to be leaders, but we do not recognize that there are many people, knowingly or unknowingly, in the chain of life. As much as we look up to others, there are others who are looking up to us. And therefore, our expression, our actions, our behaviors, if they express our greatness, it helps others also to attain their greatness. Where does this spiritual strength, where does this spiritual journey begin from? That too we can learn from great people. Very often, questions are asked, especially to the gurus or to spiritual people, and particularly to monks. We have all faced these questions, and I know these questions used to be asked to Gurudev, and Gurudev would give in his imitable style the most hilarious answer to this question. When I used to conduct many Balvihars and teenage classes in Hong Kong, many teenagers were inspired and regularly attending the sessions. And when Gurudev came to the city, I was very keen, just as I had the opportunity to have a close interaction with Gurudev. These teenagers also would have that interaction with Gurudev beside listening to his discourses in those large auditoriums. I approached Gurudev and asked him if he would have a session specially for teenagers so that they can ask their questions. And Gurudev was always available for all the people, especially the youngsters, the youth. I had already prepared the youth, but at the same time, I knew that there was one question that they would ask. And I was wishing that they would not ask this question, because I knew also what Gurudev would say. And when Gurudev wove a story, even if it was so fictitious, people would actually visualize it. That was Gurudev's method of storytelling, and therefore even he could communicate the truth, which is beyond description. And what you fear most in life, very often you attract. This question was asked to me many times, and I tried to give convincing answers. But who other than Gurudev could be the most convincing? And in midst of the question-answer sessions, the youngsters asked this question, and as bluntly as youngsters would ask, and they said, "Why did you become a Swami?" And Gurudev started the story and told them that how in college, and I'll tell you, it's a story because you will believe in it, that how in the college he met this most beautiful girl. And of course, he described her also so vividly that all jaws were dropping. And he said that he fell in love with her, and then, as it happens in all love stories, she broke his heart, and he didn't know what to do with his life, so became a Swami. This is what most people love to hear. What was that tragedy in your life that you renounced everything? And all the youngsters were laughing and quite convinced that this is why people become monks, and we should not become one. But the great master then paused after their laughter, getting their complete attention, and said, leaving jokes apart, when I was a youngster, in spite of all the goals that I had set for myself, the desires that I wanted to fulfill, the profession that I took up, the ambitions that I had, and tried to fulfill them. And every time I attained what I desired or attained my ambition or goal, there is one question I asked myself. After gaining it, am I happy? Do I feel fulfilled? Am I content? And he said that when I inquired, rather than run into a frenzy to attain something more, after every achievement, I would inquire, am I happy? Do I feel fulfilled? And when I was aware and honest to myself that even what I thought and dreamt of would give me happiness. After attaining it, I was not any happier than I was, or was I content? And therefore, my questioning, my seeking started. In fact, this honest inquiry into ourselves as to what is it that we really want. Have we even sat back? We keep on thinking, I want this, I want that, and very often what others have. What is it that I want in my life? And we will find out when we inquire that it is not an object, because we have got many objects and still are not happier. What is it that we want? What we want is happiness. What we want is to feel content, peaceful, a sense of well-being. What we want through our actions is a sense of fulfillment, effortless efficiency, to be able to express ourselves fully and have that sense of achievement in which we feel satisfied. In our relationships, we wish that the people whom we love would be happy with us, and we would be happy in that relationships. But in most relationships, we feel disappointment, we feel upset, we are disgruntled. So what is it that we are seeking? When that inquiry began, Puja Gurudev said, I couldn't stop myself. And this is how we learn how great people became great. Because first, they inquired into their own life. What are we seeking? What is it that we want? What are we doing? For what are we doing what we are doing? And he said, that led me to inquire. And we know that Puja Gurudev started reading books of Swami Shivanandaji Maharaj. Inspired by his books, he went to the Himalayas wondering, what do these monks do besides maybe lecturing people? And if there are such knowledgeable people amongst these wandering monks who seem to be just begging for food and maybe living a life, a wasteful life, unproductive life, he went to the Himalayas to know how these great people become great. And when he went there and saw that this great renunciate, this great monk, had not given up action, even though getting up early in the morning and sitting in his meditation, early mornings teaching so many students, but throughout the day, serving the people whether it was their medical care, whether it was publishing books, was amazed that how such a renunciate still did so much. Inspired by this great spiritual master, his missionary zeal, his dedicated activities in the service of the people, took his quest to gain that knowledge that kept these people who wanted nothing from themselves, for they were happy within themselves, who had no desire for themselves, and yet they continued to act to bring well-being, success, and happiness to the people of the world, who did not escape from action, but gave that dignity, that beauty, that efficiency to action by which the maximum people benefited from it. With efficient action, we can get success. When that success benefits the team or benefits society, it leads us to significance. But greatness comes to those people whose life is a joyful living in bringing peace and joy to many. Such people we look up to, we admire. There are powerful people also whom people follow, but we don't consider those people as great. And how did these people attain this greatness? When in Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna explains to Arjuna, who is a man of action, a warrior, a man of achievement and success, and such a person overcome by emotions, fears and anxieties, seeing a challenging situation as a calamity rather than an opportunity, wonders, as we do, even in our duties, should I or should I not act? But the question is not to act or not to act, but what action to do and what actions to be avoided. And most important is, how do we act without being stressed, without being bound with habits of repetitive actions, creating bondage and vasanas, and repeating the same mistakes again and again, and even if not mistakes, going in life in a repetitive pattern, and therefore in a circle, landing ourselves back to the same point in every endeavor, relationship, etc. And in midst of that cyclic actions, where there can be flight to greater heights. Bhagwan Shri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita makes Arjuna aware and teaches him the secret of efficient action. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Dexterity in action is yoga, or leads you to the union, not only with any goal that you have set for yourself, but union with what we truly seek, and that is happiness, peace, fulfillment, harmony, love. This is what Bhagwan explains, that through your karma, through your actions, living in the spirit of dedication, yajna, you can not only rise above your own limitations, your mind becomes calm, peace, and attains equanimity. And with that calm mind, not only there is innovativeness, there is intuition by which we can discover our infinite nature and that infinite happiness that lies within ourselves, and that infinite inspiration and power to continue to act like the great people. That love within to act like great people and express that greatness that our Guru saw in us and dedicated his life to bring it out of us. He did it. We just have to follow the way. So can we. When we hear about such great goals, when we see great people, we also desire it. But when we look at ourselves, we wonder, can we do it? We like to show off to the people that we are great and respect us. But when we examine ourselves, we know our weaknesses more than anyone else in this world. And focusing on our limitations and weaknesses, we do not recognize that working with the right attitude, like great people did, for a higher goal, we can express and discover in and through our actions the greater potentials that lie in each one of us. Yet, we fear it. We fear responsibility even for ourselves. We fear responsibility that comes with leadership as well as with recognition and greatness. We fear action, hard work, but we do not recognize the secret of leadership, the secret of greatness, the secret of easily attaining greatness. Because as much as we understand, it is only when we see the evidence of it that we have the faith. It is only when we have inspiration that we have the dynamism to break through our limited selfish ego that confines us with just limited desires, wants, and pleasures, that the greater fulfillment that we admire in others or we are jealous of. And jealousy is only a distorted form of admiration. Turn that jealousy to recognize that what we are jealous of is what we are wanting in ourselves. And we see in someone else. And when it turns into admiration, it gives us the inspiration to strive to achieve it. And therefore, even after giving the philosophy, explaining it, the technique to, Shri Krishna gives one simple advice to Arjuna. And giving example of Janak Maharaj, etc., these mighty kings who lived such a spiritual life of internal renunciation and yet full of activities. He says that live like Janak Maharaj and others lived. If you have no desires for yourself, then to inspire the many, live your life in greatness. And for both, Bhagwan gives this most beautiful verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which points out to us how just one person can influence an era. How our own Gurudev, getting his inspiration from Swami Shivananda and Sri Swami Tapoji Maharaj, one who dedicated his life in the service of the people, and the other who dedicated his life to be an exemplary example of that abidance in that spiritual knowledge, that bliss, and imparted that knowledge to many, Sri Swami Tapoji Maharaj. Inspired by these great masters, Pujya Gurudev did not sit there reveling in his bliss that he gained from the knowledge of Vedanta from these great masters. But just as these great masters lived, he demonstrated to the world with his life. And therefore, Sri Krishna, in the 21st verse of the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we find this most beautiful secret of spontaneous, easy inspiration to attain greatness. Understanding the psychology of human beings. And the simple thing is, when we have an altar of admiration, reverence, and love, when we are devoted to a great personality, then spontaneously this mind that imitates who it admires thinks of those it admires and loves. And as we think, so we become. This verse of the Bhagavad Gita, with which we conclude today's session and lead on each day to recognize how these great masters in every field of life became great, and how when we admire them, we follow them and become great. Let us conclude with this beautiful verse. Yadyadacharati sreshtaha tattaddevetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvardate. Yadyad acharati sreshtaha. In fact, whatever we are wanting in life, whatever you admire, in whosoever we see, or whichever personality we see such a character, sreshtaha, and whatever that great person, sreshtaha, acharati, however such a person behaves and acts, tat eva itaraha janaha. In fact, in that manner, people easily follow. Sayat pramanam kurute. Whatever ideal, principle, or means of knowledge or vision that person has, and a deeper meaning to it is what through his or her behavior, whatever standard that person sets of life, of action, of goals, of virtues, whatever that great person becomes an evidence to, a standard to, what the great books of knowledge say, lokas tadanuvartate. People very easily, spontaneously follow and become. And therefore, in these sessions, we shall see, get inspiration from such a person of greatness, such a sthita pragya, such a gunatit purushaha, such a person of dedicated, selfless action, such a person of greatness, none other than our Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda. He did it. And he demonstrated to us that you and I, we can do it. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.